Hello and welcome to IST. I'm Siddharth Varadarajan, and today we're going to focus on one of India's most important neighbors. That's not Pakistan, not China, but Bangladesh. And we're very fortunate to have with us today Mr. H T Imam, political advisor to Sheikh Hasina, the Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh. Welcome to Rajya Sabha TV, Mr. Imam.
Thank you very, very much, and my greetings to you, and through your channel, greetings to the people of India and the Rajya Sabha itself, and also generally the people who stand side by side with us all the time.
Mr. Imam, if we look at the last 6 years, there's been a dramatic improvement in Bangladesh-India relations.
Oh yes.
Whether it's the level of political understanding, trade relations, the amicable settlement of the maritime boundary through arbitration, all developments that perhaps may have been considered rather difficult a decade or a decade and a half ago. As you look at the new government in India, not so new, well, it's been about 7 months, but under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, given his recent endorsement of the land boundary agreement, how hopeful are you that relations between the two countries can be raised now to a qualitatively new level?
Oh yes. As a matter of fact, both the leaders, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, the daughter of our founding father, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and also your great leader, Mr. Narendra Modi, both of them have, it seems that they have clicked the relationship, and the way they have been meeting and talking to each other, and as if they will, and in the words of Mr. Narendra Modi himself, that our relations will reach a new height. And we have also already, during the 7 months' time, there have been significant developments in our relationship. Many positive changes have taken place, and we are determined to take it further, and so that Bangladesh and India, by these two, they have the same symbiotic relations as we started in 1971. And please remember that we always in Bangladesh, those who have had anything to do with the War of Liberation or the independence of Bangladesh, for them especially, India has a very special place in their heart. And I cannot forget that the comrades in arms from the Indian armed forces who fought along with the Mukti Bahini, they spilled their blood for us. And this is, the relationship is bonding, it's through blood and sweat and hard work, and for the love for each other. And the very principles for which Bangladesh stands is democracy, human rights, secularism. All of these are very dear to not only us but dear to you as well.
Right. If you look at the last 2 years specifically, we saw under the previous Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, an effort made to come up with these agreements, the land boundary, the Tista agreement. But somehow that government failed to deliver the necessary clearances from Parliament and so on. How much of a setback was that for you and Dhaka, and for the Awami League in particular, and for Sheikh Hasina, who had staked so much on improvement of relations with India? Do you think that failure to deliver in time on those two landmark agreements was something which was a wrinkle in the relationship?
There were two things that we were looking forward to, and very hopefully that the land boundary agreement would be ratified. This is one. And the second, that the water through the Tista river would start flowing into Bangladesh. These two didn't materialize, but we also appreciate the circumstances under which the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, he tried his best, but the circumstances were beyond his control. But then, with the overwhelming majority and the endorsement that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has, and the way he has come out very stoutly in support of Bangladesh. You see, during the last election that was held on the 5th of January 2014, it was India's support, and very solid support, that helped us a great deal. And the way they said that this is a constitutional, legal government, and this is the government they will deal with. And that's why Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that it was Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman who created Bangladesh, but it is his daughter Sheikh Hasina who has saved Bangladesh.
Right.
These were very important endorsement. And immediately after that, the two have been meeting. I think they met in New York in September. They had long discussions and very fruitful and productive meetings there. And later on, also at the various levels, at the ground level, there have been a lot of improvements, developments that have been quietly taking place. Perhaps those are not publicized. For example, the border huts. Only the other day, 3-4 days, the border huts that we started a few years back. Right from 2009, both the countries, we have been working together. And the most important thing, I think, was that the two governments brought us together was the security threat. Because the soil of Bangladesh was being used by the ISI and the Bangladeshi government support. That made it possible for the miscreants, for the militants to operate from Bangladesh soil against the northeastern states of India. That was something, and that wrinkled us always. And this is something that we could never support.
And Prime Minister Hasina turned the tables on that issue.
She not only turned the issue, but then she emphatically declared that our policy would be zero tolerance against militancy, and we will not allow the land of Bangladesh to be used by any foreign or local elements to operate against any of our neighbors, especially India, and again particularly against the northeastern states.
Looking ahead over the next few months, is there a timeline? I mean, I presume a summit, a visit to Dhaka by Prime Minister Modi is on the cards. Any sense of when that might happen?
It is being discussed, and I think the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the External Affairs Ministry of India, they are working together on this. And as soon as the situation is conducive, I see conducive in the sense that there are certain issues that still have to be taken care of. And among them is, as you are aware, that throughout the year 2013, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, BNP, along with their supporter, the Jamaat-e-Islami, and then again they are supported by ISI and other international terrorist organizations. They created almost 1971-like situation. The same group of people, the same kind of people with the same ideology, they grouped together.
What about some of the other problem areas from the past? The issue of transit rights, the issue of Indian investments, particularly in the infrastructure in Bangladesh. To what extent are these problems, and how is there any possibility for forward movement, particularly on the transit issue?
So far as these small issues that you referred to, they are not small. There are a lot of things that have been moving forward. For example, the first is the gas transfer, the power transfer, the agreements on the power sharing. All of these have been going through very smoothly. You know, we have a grid that has been constructed by India from Behrampur in Murshidabad in India to Bharamara in Bangladesh, and power is already flowing 500 megawatt, and soon it will be upgraded, and there will be another 500 megawatt. Then there was the upgrading of Ashuganj port, only to allow Ashuganj river port, only to allow the vessels that would come there with heavy equipment and the overdrive vehicles that would pass through Bangladesh territory. So we not only cooperated, as a matter of fact, I personally and my colleagues, all of us, we facilitated the construction and upgrading of the road link between Ashuganj and right up to Akaura to the Indian border. So these small things, the connectivity issue, we don't look at it as transit only, because it's not transit, it's really connectivity. And connectivity in all the areas, not only connectivity between India and Bangladesh. We look forward to connectivity through India to Bhutan, through India to Nepal. We bring them all together.
Through several transit points.
Several points. So it is not only beneficial to India and Bangladesh, but it also facilitates trade and trade relationship, business relationship, industrial relationship, and the way the Bangladesh economy is benefiting from our trade relations and close level, very good relations with Tripura, with Meghalaya, with Assam and all those states. And there are enormous possibilities there. And this is realized, and this is also by both the parties, Bangladesh and India. And the government of India itself is facilitating all of these movements, the power transfer, gas transfer, the business investments. And you will be surprised to know, it's a pleasant surprise for many of us in Bangladesh also, that there are companies in Bangladesh who are investing now in northeastern states. And with their resources, both of us can benefit. And similarly, we are also having discussions with Indian companies who are interested in investments in Bangladesh. And you'll be pleased to know that there are now very large companies in Bangladesh who are capable of investing in India as well, and in pharmaceutical industry, in the garments industry, in shoe, leather, and all of these.
On that note, sir, it's time for me to take a break. When we come back, we will discuss the internal situation and dynamics in Bangladesh. Do keep watching. Welcome back to IST. My guest today is Mr. H T Imam, political advisor to Sheikh Hasina, Prime Minister of Bangladesh. We will come in a second to the sharpening political sort of conflict in Bangladesh, but there's one bilateral issue that I still need to put to you. In the last decade or two, the question of migration has become a rather thorny question between India and Bangladesh. In India, there's a tendency to, I would say, exaggerate or politicize the question by, often people use the phrase infiltrator, when what they're talking about is an undocumented migrant. In Bangladesh, on the other hand, we've heard from time to time politicians in the past go to the other extreme and say there's not a single undocumented Bangladeshi working in India, which is clearly not the case. Moving ahead, is it possible for the two sides to have a reasoned, rational dialogue on the question of migration to find ways to regulate the flow of labor rather than trying to focus our energies on stopping something which clearly we're not succeeding in doing?
You see, the flow of labor is something that is an international issue. And Bangladesh is one country which has a huge Bangladeshi diaspora working throughout the world. We have a very large number of people working in Saudi Arabia, in the Middle Eastern countries, in other areas also. So there may be some workers working in India as well. And there are Indian workers as well with work permits. And there are many who are also undocumented who work in the industries. Because the industries and businessmen, you see, they do not wait for the official regulations to take place and the formalities to be completed and so on. So therefore, there is some kind of informal movement of labor from both countries. But what you are referring to is, as you said, infiltration. That is not the word I use. I see. That is used.
That's used.
It's used maliciously, I would say.
That's right.
That is used maliciously, and to those who want to brand Bangladesh as a different country, as you see, the Bangladesh today is totally different from what it was. It is. You see, when we started in 2009, our first priority was the manifesto. The manifesto this time was different because it was not just a manifesto in the usual sense of the term. It was a long-term vision, and that was called Vision 2021 by our great leader Sheikh Hasina. She said that we want to take Bangladesh to a height in 2021, which will be the 50th anniversary of our Bangladesh independence. By that time, we will make Bangladesh a middle-income country, and to do so, we needed investments in all the sectors. The first was security. So we entered into security arrangements with India, and that has stood the test of time. And that we have solid security arrangements with India. The militants are no longer there. The anti-Bangladesh elements have also been expelled. This is one. On the other hand, next on the development side, immediately we embarked on huge investments in agriculture to make Bangladesh a country where we have 100% food security. In 1972, we had a population of 75 million, and we had extreme difficulty feeding our population. Today, in the year 2015, we have more than 16 million, almost 160 million plus population. The entire population is not only being fed, we have food security, we have surplus food now, we have started exporting rice.
No, I think it's laudable what
this is something. And the achievements in food, in shelter, in disaster management.
That's right. And I think human development in general.
And human development in general.
I think Bangladesh.
The MDG goals,
Yes.
in MDG, achievement of MDG goals, Bangladesh is far ahead of others.
That's right. No, in many
we
ways,
have achieved
you're being
almost
polite.
everything.
You're being polite because in many ways Bangladesh is far ahead of India in some of the crucial indicators.
No, I wouldn't refer to India.
But Mr. Imam, as a friend of Bangladesh, much as we admire these accomplishments and much as we respect Sheikh Hasina's overall vision for the India-Bangladesh relationship as well as her vision for the future development of Bangladesh, the recent sharpening of political tension in the country, the escalation of political violence, is something that worries all of us. The BNP, and its leadership is largely to blame for some of the violence we've seen on the streets. But there's also been the unfortunate assassination attempt the other day on Riaz Rahman. What plan does the Sheikh Hasina government have to de-escalate this kind of tension so that political differences can be resolved politically rather than on the streets in this very, very destructive manner?
Before I go into this, the reason why I was referring to the achievement of MDG goals and the self-sufficiency in food, you see the industries in Bangladesh have expanded so much and there is so much of acceleration of industrial growth and agricultural growth that the need for migration out of Bangladesh is no longer there. That's why this is there is no point exaggerating that issue.
Okay.
That is
fair enough. Fair enough.
This is one. Secondly, on the Bangladesh issue, I would take your cue about the assassination attempt on Riaz Rahman. That is totally false. There has been no assassination attempt on him. As a matter of fact, I can say almost with authority that we have information collected, and his own daughter, while talking to the press, said that, well, no one really wanted to kill him. They wanted to scare him because he perhaps became a problem for some people within the party.
Okay.
So it was,
No, I'm not suggesting that the Awami League was responsible. All I'm saying is that these kinds of incidents are creating misgivings in people's minds about what is happening in Bangladesh.
As a matter of fact, that was the morning I was leaving for Delhi, and the Indian High Commissioner, Mr. Pankaj Saran, and the American, the CDA, they both immediately called me and said, what is this happening? I immediately talked to the police, the IG police and the Commissioner of Police, and they said it was the police who took the action. And Mr. Riaz Rahman or his family, they didn't file any case. But the police is going through it, and it's a case that we will pursue to the last, and we will find out who has done it and why. Because the wounds that he had were from pellets. Not from bullets. So there was
but in general, the escalation of I mean, the BNP is taken to the streets now. One could argue, just to play devil's advocate, that the attitude of the Awami League government towards BNP, saying, I think you yourself have said that the party should be declared illegal, its leaders' movements are restricted. If you are going to prevent them from engaging in peaceful politics, quote unquote, obviously they then get an excuse to resort to violence and take to the streets. So I'm saying, is there any possibility of dialogue, political dialogue, so that things come back on track?
That is very important. But there is one fact that I usually draw the lessons. You see, in 1971, the people who opposed the creation of Bangladesh and who were responsible for committing the worst kind of violence against people.
Many of whom are now being put on trial.
Put on trial. The genocide they committed, the rape and arson of women, and the total destruction of houses and all that, and especially attacks on minorities, all of these. The pattern that started in 71, it was stopped after Bangladesh Awami League, Bangladesh was liberated and Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman came back to power. But immediately after that, when Ziaur Rahman came to power, and definitely you would agree with me that he came to power illegally.
Of course.
He usurped power. And then what did he do? He immediately brought back all those criminals who had fled Bangladesh, all those people who were responsible for committing the worst kind of violence against its own citizens,
Right.
they were brought back, they were reinstated, they were given resources, and they were fattened in every way. They were given banks, insurance companies, some of them, and some of them were included murderers like Mr. Alim, who was responsible for personally slaughtering people, or Nizami, or Mujahid. All of these, they become important figures, and some of them became ministers. And so there was a 160-degree turn between the relation between India and Bangladesh also.
Right.
Because then as I often mention, that India bashing became a most favorite pastime of those governments.
Yeah, and
you see, the best relationship.
BNP regime tended to give support to all of these extremists,
all these
terrorist
extremists,
groups.
all
That's
through,
right.
from mid 75 till 1990, along all this time, throughout this time, between when it was under Ziaur Rahman or General Ishad, it was the worst relationship between the two of us at the same time. On the same time, this violence has continued.
No, but running out of time, sir, but is it your contention that the BNP is then an illegal party which should not exist? In which case,
no, I wouldn't
what
say,
direction does Bangladesh
I wouldn't
politics
say
go in?
so. I wouldn't say so now,
Right.
because but then the BNP's origin is illegal.
Fair
That
enough.
can be contested.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That can be contested. But what we say is that must be prevented is that in 2013, the violence that took place in Bangladesh, more than 500 people were killed, more than 550 schools were burned down, and you see there was enormous arson,
Attacks on
killing,
minorities also took place.
attacks on minorities, those who could go to vote. You see, Bangladesh, BNP didn't, they boycotted the election. Well, fair enough. But then they said they would resist the election. They didn't not only participate, they killed, resisted people from going to the polls.
Right.
That was a different story. Right. But once we came to power, again, after the 5th of January 2014, and there was international endorsement of Bangladesh election. You see, the election of our speaker as the president of CPA, or the election of Mr. Sabir Chaudhary as the chairman of IPU, all of these are huge endorsements of the election. And India has always been standing by our side solidly. All of these and the endorsements from European Union and others, these have now made BNP Jamaat almost desperate. Now, otherwise, what good reason is there? That is something that I would request you to do analyze. They say that why want the government to resign? Why should the government resign? It's a validly, it's a legal government in power. It's doing massive good work.
Their demands
it's doing massive good work.
Their demands cannot be sustained. But is there scope for, because we're really running out of time now, is there scope for a negotiated understanding of some kind, not to have early elections, which I know you ruled out, but perhaps even to put in place a machinery in which both parties could have faith, something of that kind, so that the BNP is dragged out of the streets and brought back to a political forum, so that the people of Bangladesh can be spared this kind of descent into chaos.
There are two things. One is a question of having a dialogue, as some people suggest. Right. There cannot be a dialogue between an assassin and the victim. Okay. This is one, and this is my point of view.
Right.
This is one. Second is that if they want at all, that there should be peaceful demonstration, peaceful activities, then they must demonstrate so. Correct. So they must stop this the use of force. And what good is there? How do they achieve anything by hurling petrol bombs inside buses full of passengers, burning them to death, sending them to the burn units? What good is there to uproot railway lines and derailing trains and victimizing so many hundreds of people and throwing them into the mouths of death? All of this must stop. They must stop and declare that, well, we recognize this government as the valid government, as the constitutional government, and this is the government under which we are prepared to work.
Right.
They must say so first. Right. That is very important. And then our government, the High Command, the Honorable Prime Minister and the Bangladesh Awami League, it has a presidium, it has a central committee, all of them, then we can sit together and then we might think that, well, they have stopped violence. Okay. Let them, let them first behave.
Right.
Till such time they behave, there is no question, and ask and question the existence of the government and challenge the validity of the constitutionality of the government.
Right.
There cannot be any dialogue. There cannot be any discussion with them.
On that note, sir, I think you've sketched out a possible way that peace could be established on the street and political process could be taken forward. Thank you so much.